Honorable members, prayers. Let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. The guide. Honorable members, we could not commence early because this morning I had a message from the Majority Caucus that they were having a caucus meeting and pleaded that we should start business today after the completion of their caucus meeting. Intention was to have completed at 11. I think they have done that, but we still don't have a lot of them in. And so we are starting a business a bit later than scheduled. That is the reason for the delay in commencement of proceedings today. We have a message from His Excellency the President, and the message is dated 17th June 2022. It was received yesterday in my office and reads, Mr. Speaker, absence from Ghana. In accordance with Article 59 of the Constitution, I write to inform you that I will be traveling outside the country on Sunday, 19 June 2022, to Brussels, Belgium, at the invitation of His Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, to participate in the 5th edition of the European Development Days, EDD, to be held on the 21st and 22nd June 2022. After this, I will travel to Kigali, Rwanda, on Wednesday, 22nd June 2022, to lead Ghana's delegation to a 26th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting scheduled to be held from 20th to 25th June 2022. I will return to Ghana on Saturday, 25th June 2022. During my absence, the Vice President, Alhaji Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, shall, in accordance with Article 68 of the Constitution, act in my stead. Yours sincerely and best wishes, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. That is signed by him and to the Right Honorable Speaker, my good self. Copy to the Vice and the Chief of Staff. I don't have a formal communication today, and so we'll move to item 4, correction of votes and proceedings and official reports. We'll start with the correction of votes and proceedings of Friday, 17th June, 2022. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 5, yes.
Mr. Speaker, page 5. I was absent with permission, but I've been marked as absent.
That's item.
That is
item 3, number.
Number 34. On the page 7, that is where my name is being marked absent.
We haven't gotten to page 7.
Item 4, number 37. Oti John Kobina Bless.
Yeah.
Sorry, Owusubio Benito, number 37.
Mr. Speaker, it's on page 7, that is where the name is.
Page 7, number
34.
34. Okofu Dache Williams, the honorable member for German South. So please kindly capture him absent with permission.
Thank you.
Not without permission. Page 8.
No.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. On page 7, number 45, I will mark absent. Supposed to be absent with permission. Thank you.
Page 7, number 35.
45.
45.
Daniel Insala Wakba.
You were absent with permission.
Yes, Right Honorable Speaker.
Okay, table office, kindly take note. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. Page 20. Page 21. Page 22. Page 23. Page 24. Page 25. Page 26. Page 27. Page 28. Page 29. Page 30. Page 31. Page 32. Honorable members, in the absence of any further correction, the votes and proceedings of the 14th sitting held on Friday, 17th June 2022 are adopted as a true record of proceedings. Honorable members, I have in my possession a copy of the official report of 15th June 2022. Any corrections? There being no corrections, honorable members, the official report of 15 June 2022 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. We will move straight away to question time. We have a lot of questions today on the order paper. They are meant to be answered by two key ministers, the Minister for Transport and the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources. So we'll start by inviting the Minister for Transport to take his appropriate seat and then respond to the questions. And we start with question number 543. The question stands in the name of the Honourable Member for Tema East, Honourable Isaac Ashai Odampton. Yes, Majority Chief Whip.
Speaker, leadership got correspondence from the Minister for Transport that he's unavoidably absent, and he communicates his regret, and hence he is unable to attend upon the House to do business. So, Speaker, that is the news we have from the Minister for Transport. I thank you.
Yes, Minority Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's worrying that ministers are gradually turning this House, Mr. Speaker, for lack of better word, like a joke. Because, Mr. Speaker, they wait until the morning of asking the questions, then now they will run to you that I cannot come because there's one agent thing or the other. No, Mr. Speaker, as you are very much aware, these questions are transmitted to the ministries long before even the business meeting happens on Thursday. And immediately after the business statement, it is written to them to remind them that so and so date they are to appear. So, Speaker, if they wait until the day of the questions, then they do this. So, Speaker, as you rightly know, the number of questions that we have outstanding are gradually getting out of hand. And so therefore, the Minister for Transport in particular, yes, he used to be one of those who happily come to the House and answer questions. But Mr. Speaker, of late, time and time again, Mr. Speaker, I can recollect that this will be about the third time I alone is raising concern about his inability to appear before the House. Mr. Speaker, we'll be grateful that you help this House hold these ministers accountable, because this is one of the two that is used in holding them accountable. So for the ministers to be picking and choosing when they want to come, Speaker, I believe as a House, we need to resolve. Because unless the person is sick, you have deputy ministers, you don't even have the courtesy of sending even a deputy minister, but just right to say that you are not available. I don't think that is tenable. If we continue to allow that to stand, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, this House will continue to be weak and weak. Mr. Speaker, so I will be grateful that you give some strong wording to the minister and get the minister to appear before the House soonest, probably within this same week, to answer the questions, because avoiding to come to this House, Mr. Speaker, is refusing to answer to the ordinary citizens of this country. So, Mr. Speaker, we hope that you will give a very strong warning to the minister and get the minister to come to the House within the week to answer this question. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, available leader of the majority, what do you say?
Speaker, I think it's a straightforward matter, and I'm in total agreement with what my colleague said, except to say that I think it's high time we name and shame. It's high time we name and shame. So it shouldn't box all the ministers together. We have ministers who have been doing their work diligently, and they take this as serious. I don't want to mention any names. Anytime a number of them are unable to attend upon the House, they've given notice ahead of time. And for me, that is the trust of your worry. The notice should come ahead of time. We understand that their man is a human institution, their money. But you cannot bring your correspondence or excuse duty on the same day that you're supposed to appear before this House. That is totally unacceptable. And it's something we shouldn't romance at all. So, but having said that, we will reach out to the minister. We'll let him know the House is not happy about this. And we will work assiduously, Speaker, with respect, we will work assiduously to ensure that we reprogram this as soon as possible. So I'll plead with my colleagues. Maybe we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and probably this will be the last. We will not entertain this kind of attitude and bring in the notice at the very day you're supposed to take your question. That will not be accepted. And I'm not too happy about it. So I'm in total agreement with the worries we expressed, especially relative to the transport minister. And like you rightly said, he's one of the ministers who have been very diligent. But these days, his attitude leaves a lot to be desired. So, Speaker, I'm only going to plead that we will try and reprogram him for him to appear and do the needful.
Honorable members, the leaders have taken us through the motion of how questions are asked of ministers. The question is filed by the member through the leadership of the caucus of the member to the Speaker. The Speaker admits the question. The question is processed through the Business Committee. That is after it's submitted to the Ministry. The Ministry is given 3 weeks to submit the answer to the House, and then processed through the Business Committee, and then the Minister is informed. A date is scheduled, and the Minister is to appear before the House to answer the question. And the standing orders are very clear on that. It's mandatory for the Minister to appear to answer the question. Now, from what I've been given, the Minister, through the Acting Chief Director, one Mrs. Mabel Sego, submitted a letter dated 20th of June. That's just yesterday. And it was received at 10:30 a.m. today, 21st of June, at the table office by the clerk at table, and then processed through to the leadership. I have just been given a copy of that letter. Honorable members, I agree with leadership that this is not good enough. The minister has been given sufficient notice to appear today to answer the question. And the Speaker, the minister has used his Acting Chief Director to inform the House that he will not be available today to answer the questions. He prefers that the questions be rescheduled to Thursday, 23rd June. Honorable members, ministers don't decide when they will appear to the House to answer the questions. That decision is not for ministers. That decision is for the House and the Speaker. And so, by the constitutional provision, if you all read Article 122, this constitutes contempt of the House. It says, an act, I'm reading Article 122, an act or omission which obstructs or impedes Parliament in the performance of its function, or which obstructs or impedes a member or officer of Parliament in the discharge of his duties, or affronts the dignity of Parliament, or which tends either directly or indirectly to produce that result, is contempt of Parliament. This provision has been captured in outstanding orders as Order 28. I agree with the submission made by the leaders that this is one of the ministers who used to be very punctual in responding to questions asked by members. But of late, his conduct seemed to be negating all the gains he made in the House. I am tempted to refer his conduct to the Privileges Committee. But because of the intervention of leadership, I will resist that temptation and not refer him to the Privileges Committee for today. But the next conduct tantamount to this behavior will be referred to the Privileges Committee. I will not accept his request that the questions be rescheduled for Thursday. I will refer the questions back to the Business Committee to reschedule it at the appropriate date for him to answer. We have 20 questions for today, and therefore I will excuse him for today and ask the Business Committee to reschedule the questions, but give him notice that this House will no longer entertain that kind of behavior. If for any good reason, please, Chief Directors and Acting Chief Directors be told in very clear language that we are not going to accept any language as the minister is unavoidably absent. We are not going to accept that language. There must be a reason, acceptable reason why the minister is absent, not unavoidably absent. What is that to the ministry? Unavoidably. Please, there must be good reason why the minister cannot attend and answer the questions. We are all human. We've all been in this business for some time, and we will understand if the reason is cogent, is acceptable, is reasonable, but not unavoidably absent. And so the questions that stand in the name of honorable members, question 543, 549, 554, 556, 674, and 987, 1099, 1272, and 1273 of pages 3 and 4 of the order paper are accordingly referred back to the Business Committee to reschedule for the Minister for Transport to appear before this House and to answer the questions. But as I stated earlier on, the Minister should take notice that is the last time that this House will grant him such an opportunity. The next absence of the Minister for unavoidable reasons will refer to the Committee on Privileges as a conduct tantamount to a breach of the privilege of this House. And the committee will summon him to answer why he should not be mulched for breach of privileges of this House. I direct accordingly. And so, Business Committee kindly reschedule the questions for the Minister to appear to answer. We will now move on to page 4, and we are honored with the presence of the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources. She will take the appropriate seat and respond to the questions. The first question stands in the name of the Honourable Member for Nadoli Kaleu, Honourable Anthony Menkara Suma. Please, the Minister is properly seated. You may ask your question now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I rise to ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources what plans the Ministry has to provide the people of Kanna in the Nodul Kaliu district with a water system to deal with the perennial water crisis in the community. Thank you.
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Currently, Kanna is supplied with potable water from 8 functional boreholes fitted with hand pumps. As a result of population growth, these boreholes are unable to meet the water demand of the community. Mr. Speaker, consequently, the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, through the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, is undertaking feasibility studies for the construction of a small town piped water system to improve potable water supply to Kanna, funding Kanna and in the Nadoli Kaliu district. Funding for the implementation of this project would be sourced from development partners as soon as the feasibility report is ready. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any supplementary question? Yes.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Honourable Minister, when are you expecting the feasibility report from Community Water and Sanitation Agency to enable you source the funding? When? When are you expecting the report, the feasibility report from Community Water and Sanitation Agency?
Yes, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, the feasibility report will be presented when it is finished, but I can't give the time frame. I know they are working on it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member. Any further supplementary?
Yes, Right Honourable Speaker. Honourable Minister, in your response, you cited population growth as one of the reasons why you are currently having to do a feasibility study to address the problem. But besides, in your response, you cited population growth as one of the reasons why you have to do a feasibility study to be able to address the problem. But besides the population growth, there are some communities, Lonkoro, Pempien, Gongomuni, Varpo, and Bango. The topography is not good. So attempts to provide water through boreholes has not been successful. Do you have any plans?
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The towns listed haven't been included in the question, but I will assume, and rightly so, that with the construction of the small town piped water system, we can serve more people. So I will kindly ask the Honourable Member to give us the list so that we can pipe these towns as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Actually, those areas are not new townships or communities. They are just part of that community called Sankana. They are sections of Sankana, but they are located on a rocky area. And you know, that's my constituency for many years, so I know it very well. Yes, but the borehole provided for the community are 12, not 8. If 8 are functioning, it means 4 are broken down, and they need to work on them. Yes, but honorable member, any further supplementary?
No, Speaker, please. With the further elaboration from you, I'm done. Thank you.
Yes, so honorable minister, please get the community water and sanitation, and I think the honorable member will also support to make the other 4 boreholes functional, whilst we pursue the issue of the small water project for the community. They have a very large dam. That's a huge catchment of water that could be used for that purpose. So please, Minister Kandil, follow it up. So we move on to the next, because this constituency specific, we move on to the next question. That is question number 425, stands in the name of the honorable member for Yile Krobo, Honorable Albert Tete Nyakote. Honorable member, you may ask your question now.
Right, Honorable Speaker. I arise to ask the Minister for Sanitation.
Please, it's not your turn. It's the turn of Honorable Eric Afo, the honorable member for Amenfi West. Question 361. Yes, honorable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources when the following communities in the Amenfi West constituency will be connected to the community water program under the ministry. Mr. Speaker, the communities are Wasedunko, Asankra Musiaso, Asankra Kwaben, Odankutuamuso, Mumuni, and Christian Kwanta. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, most of the above-mentioned communities in the Amenfi West constituency are provided with boreholes for the supply of potable water. It is only Pristi and Kwanta which is yet to be provided with borehole facilities. Mr. Speaker, in recognition once again of population growth and its effects on the water systems in these communities, the ministry, through the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, is considering sourcing for funding for the rehabilitation of the borehole facilities and construct a small town water system with the borehole serving as the source of water. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, any supplementary?
Yes, Honorable Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I may quote the Minister, the second paragraph. In recognition of the population growth and its effects on the water systems in these communities, the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, through the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, is considering, the word is considering, sourcing of funding for the rehabilitation of boreholes and construction of small water system, with the boreholes in serving as the source of water. Mr. Speaker, I would like the Minister to assure me, will you consider this project in the 2023 budget statement of your ministry, for that matter, the government? Thank you. What I'm saying is that...
So your question is whether the Minister will assure you...
Exactly.
Whether she will consider...
Exactly. This project in 2023 budget statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's what it is.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will surely consider that. Thank you.
The answer is we will surely consider.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank her for assuring the House, assuring people in Amenfi West that these 4 or 5 communities will be considered in her budget statement for 2023 budget statement. Thank you.
Minister, the Committee on Government Assurance will kindly note that, and we'll proceed from there. Now, Honourable Member, it's your turn. The Honourable Member for Yilo Krobo.
Right, Honourable Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources what measures the Ministry is putting in place to curb the perennial water crisis in the Yilo Krobo constituency.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The supply of potable water in the Yilo Krobo municipality is provided by both the Community Water and Sanitation Agency and the Ghana Water Company Limited. The communities are mainly served by a point source scheme, which is managed on the basis of community ownership structure. Mr. Speaker, currently, the Ghana Water Company Limited is undertaking water supply expansion works to connect Uhunya to Mpoti, Agogo, Opesika, Sutapon, Ako, Apamu, and the surrounding communities. Although the project suffered a major setback when some aggrieved residents burnt and destroyed the pipelines within the constituency, the Ghana Water Company Limited has expedited action on replacing the damaged pipelines and has laid 3.7 kilometers of 110 millimeter HDPE pipelines and 8 kilometers of 160 mm HDPE pipelines as distribution lines to serve the above listed communities. Furthermore, interconnections are also underway on the existing transmission mains serving Koforidua from the booster station at Kwesi Diapa. It is expected that the works will be completed by the second quarter of the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, when all these interventions are completed, the Yilo Krobo municipality will see marked improvement in water supply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a further question. But before I ask my question, if you permit me, I'll plead with the Minister to kindly withdraw the statement in her response that aggrieved residents burnt and destroyed pipelines. This is false and follows the usual narrative by ECG.
Honourable Member, please, supplementary question.
Honourable Minister, can you tell us when the 3.7 kilometer pipeline was constructed and to which communities?
When and which communities? Yes.
Coach.
Mr. Speaker, if I heard the honourable member right, he's asking where the 3.7 kilometer pipeline is.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I cannot give the exact location as I stand here. I'll get the answer to the honourable member when I get to the office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, any further supplementary?
Honourable Minister, I also asked when the 3.7 kilometer pipeline was constructed. I'm, however, grateful for a response, and I pray that you come back to the House. I wish to add, however, that not a meter of pipeline has been added to the previous government Hunya, Boti, Bosutwi, Agogo, Opesika, Sutapon, Akpomo pipeline project after the current government took over governance in January 2017. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to my answer I want to humbly suggest to the honorable member to get to the second paragraph of the answer. These pipelines were burnt, they were destroyed by the aggrieved residents, and these are being replaced. So that is what I know, and that is what I have been given by Ghana Water Company Limited, and I do not doubt the authenticity of this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This is all for now,
Yes,
Mr. Speaker.
yes. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the next question. Question number 760 stands in the name of the honorable member for Kratchi West, Honorable Helen Adjoa Ntoso. Honorable member, you may ask the question now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Sanitation, Water Resources, whether the ministry has any plans to tap water from the Volta Lake to give the people of Kratchi West regular flow of water.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Kratchi West municipality, during the resettlement period, benefited from boreholes fitted with motorized pumps that supplied water to reinforced concrete ground tanks with a total storage capacity of about 460 cubic meters of water. The water system became dysfunctional, and in 2003, the government of Ghana, together with GTZ and KFW, intervened through the Eastern and Volta Region Assistance Project, EVORAP, providing some boreholes which were mechanized to deliver water into a 12-meter high elevated 180 cubic meter reinforced concrete reservoir. Mr. Speaker, to improve potable water delivery in the municipality, the Community Water and Sanitation Agency carried out an assessment on the water system in March 2018, taking into consideration the extent of deterioration and the water supply challenges to the large population. The Community Water and Sanitation Agency intervened in March 2019 and undertook rehabilitation works to the tune of about 330,000 Ghana cedis to improve water delivery. Currently, the water system supplies potable water at 29 standpipes and 642 private connections. Mr. Speaker, taking into consideration the safe yields of the boreholes and the capacity of the installed pumps, the water system can daily produce 582.4 cubic meters of water per day of safe water. This total daily production has the ability to meet the daily water demand of the Kratchi community at the present estimated demand of 554.92 cubic meters per day. The challenge, however, is the incessant power supply interruption from Northern Electricity Distribution Company, NEDCO. Mr. Speaker, the CWSA is in discussion with a number of agencies, including the Gramforce Ghana Limited, to develop a public-private partnership agreement for the development of a surface water supply system, drawing raw water from the Volta Lake. In the long term, the Kratchi municipality and its environs will be supplied with potable water from the Volta Lake. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, any supplementary? Yes, please.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised, and my people will equally be surprised to hear that an amount of 330,000 Ghana cedis has been used to improve the water delivery in Kratchi. I would like the minister to know that a stakeholders meeting was held in 2019, and the Ghana Water and Sanitation Agency promised to return to work on the on the water system. And Mr. Speaker, they have not returned to work on the system. That's how come my people are suffering from regular flow of water. So I just want the minister to take notice of this and to investigate whether they have really worked on the water system in my constituency. So the next question, as a follow-up, is that, and to let the minister know that the water table has really dropped. Karachi West is almost a peninsula. The water table has dropped. I want to know.
Honorable member, it's because of your seniority that I've just given you some leeway, but you are now abusing that grace. You are not supposed to, you know it. By our rules, you are not to make this long commentary before asking supplementary question. But I just gave you the opportunity to make some clarification. Now, ask the supplementary question.
Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is that the water table has dropped. Water is not flowing. The minister is saying they have worked on the system. They have not worked on the system. And he's saying that the Ghana Water and Sanitation Agency...
Honorable member, order 68, 5, and 6. It doesn't permit that. What you are doing, the orders don't permit it. So please ask your supplementary question.
My next question is that water is not flowing. Water is not flowing in my constituency. Will you consider drilling mechanized boreholes for my people because the water is not flowing in Karachi West?
Honorable Minister, you see the member is so passionate. Will you consider bringing mechanized boreholes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your kind indulgence, the reason for the interruptions in water flow or supply is the incessant interruption in power supply. And again, Mr. Speaker, it is Community Water and Sanitation Agency, not Ghana Water and Sanitation Agency. It's the Community Water, CWSA, which is in charge of that project. Mr. Speaker, as I speak, the Chief Executive is in the room. I've asked my Honorable Deputy to find out on the spot, and he says the contractors are even still on site. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll humbly suggest that from here, I'll have a tripartite meeting with the Honorable Member, the CEO, and myself to assure her. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, thank you, Minister. That is the way to go. The Honorable Member should get in touch with the Minister. Then they meet the Community and Water and Sanitation Agency to discuss this thoroughly, to know what the facts are. There's some misunderstanding as to what is really happening on the ground. You can't find this on the floor of the house. You have to go to the ground to really find out what the people are experiencing and what Community Water and Sanitation is doing on the ground. But if you have any further supplementary, you are at liberty to ask. Honorable Member, any further supplementary question?
Mr. Speaker, I'm now aware that this is happening by consent, so I will liaise with her. And I want an assurance from her that the pump will be worked on. If it's not working...
You will go to the ground with her, so that the people there will talk.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, take the minister and then the Community Water and Sanitation Agency there on the ground.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, so they get the feel that you are getting.
They are not on the ground, so I will make a follow-up.
Thank you so much. Honorable members, we move on to question number 832. Stands in the name of the honorable member for Kumbungu, Honorable Hamza Adam. Honorable member, you may ask your question now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask the Minister my question. I rise to ask the Minister for sanitation, water and sanitation, when the toilet facilities under the special initiatives in the following communities will be completed: Zangbalang, Kumbongo, Vau, Chishao, and Zoro.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I respectfully wish to indicate that the toilet facilities being implemented under the special initiatives in the above listed towns were under the ambit of the erstwhile Ministry of Special Development Initiatives, whose work is now being handled by the Special Development Initiative Secretariat in the Office of the President. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister, for your response. Respectfully, Madam Minister, may I know from you which ministry now oversees the Special Development Initiative Secretariat, so that I can redirect my question to the appropriate ministry?
Is there Office of the President? Is in the answer? Minister, I can see in the answer you said Office of the President.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask the question. Thank you.
Honorable members, we move to question number 1031, and the second Deputy Speaker will be taking the chair soon. That question stands in the name of the Honorable Member for Kwesimentin, Honorable Dr. Prince Hamidu Ama. Please, Honorable Member, you may ask your question.
Most grateful, Mr. Speaker. With your leave, I have the authority of Dr. Prince Hamid Ama to ask this question on his behalf. Mr. Speaker, with your leave,
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I'm saying that, with your leave, I have the authority of the Honorable Dr. Prince Hamid Ama to ask a question on his behalf.
And you are?
The Honorable Member for Otafo, Vincent Eko Asefua.
Yes, I've granted you leave. You can ask the question.
Most grateful, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources the state and quality of our water reserves in the country.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, water reserves involve both the quantity, which relates to availability, and quality, which relates to the health of the water reserve. In terms of quantity, the country is sufficiently endowed with both surface and groundwater resources. The total actual renewable freshwater resources, which is surface water, is estimated to be 53.2 billion cubic meters of water yield per year, of which about 14% is withdrawn and used annually. Out of the 14 used, irrigation takes 68%, domestic water supply uses 20%, industrial purposes, including mining, uses 10%, and other users take 2%. Mr. Speaker, however, the amount of water available changes markedly from season to season. The distribution within the country is also not uniform, with the southwestern part, the rainforest zone, being better watered than the coastal and northern regions, meaning the savanna zones. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the surface water resources, groundwater is also available and occurs according to the local geology. About 5% of the urban water supply and 95% of the rural water supply are sourced from groundwater. There has been a proliferation of groundwater for household and small to large-scale commercial bottled water companies. However, initial assessment of groundwater recharge and development suggests that it will be sustainable at least in the foreseeable future. Mr. Speaker, in terms of quality, the water resources are generally not in a healthy state, but the extent of deterioration varies according to the river system and river basin. The Volta River system and the coastal river system, namely Densu, Ayensu, Ochinakwa,
Honourable Minister, just a minute. The second Deputy Speaker to take the chair.
Yes, Minister, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Volta River system and the coastal river system, mainly Densu, Ayensu, Ochinakwa, Ochiemisa, Kakum, Butre, and Toji Aka basins are of fairly good water quality. The southwestern river system, Ankobra, Pra, Tano, and Bia are classified as polluted. On the other hand, Mr. Speaker, the quality of naturally occurring groundwater resources is generally good for multi-purpose use, except for some cases of localized pollution and high levels of iron, fluoride, and other minerals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Shall we move to question number 1052? 1052. And the question stands in the name of a member for Zabzugu, Honorable Jabba John Bernard. Honorable, are you Zabzugu Member of Parliament?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not, but with your leave to ask the question from the Honorable Member, I have his permission to do so. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources what plans are in place to provide small town water system to the following fast developing, and when will those plans materialize? I, Nakpayile, Palogu, I, Kuntumbeyile, and then Ivy, Warbao.
Honorable Minister.
The Speaker, the above named communities, each been provided with a number of boreholes fitted with hand pump, whilst Napali and Upaligu, in addition, have piped water systems. However, due to heavy usage as a result of population increase and lack of appropriate maintenance, most of the boreholes and water systems have broken down. Mr. Speaker, to address potable water supply in these communities in the interim, the CWSA, through the Zabzugu District Assembly, will assist the communities to repair the 7 hand pumps that are broken down. Mr. Speaker, furthermore, the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, as part of government's Water for All agenda, is working with the Community Water and Sanitation Agency on a number of projects to upgrade water supply facilities across the country under the policy reforms. And these 4 communities will be catered for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. We move to question number 1054. Question 1054. And the question stands in the member for Abrikumanov. Abrikumanov. Honorable. Yes, Honorable. You have the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask our Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources the extent to which illegal mining or galamsey is contributing to the deterioration of our water bodies. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, illegal mining, popularly known as galamsey, increases the turbidity and colorization of water bodies. Turbidity is a measure of the degree to which the water loses its transparency due to the presence of suspended particles. The more total suspended solids in the water, the murkier or dirtier the water seems, and the higher the turbidity. The acceptable turbidity value for drinking water is 5 nephelometric turbidity units, NTU, while values of 80 to 150 NTU are accepted for other water uses as appropriate. Mr. Speaker, at the end of February 2022, the average turbidity NTU of the Southwestern River System, which is the main illegal mining area in the country, was 1,313. The Volta River System was 40, and the Coastal River System was 105. Mr. Speaker, in terms of coverage, the Volta River System drains 70% of the country, the Southwestern takes 22%, and the Coastal System takes 8%. Therefore, illegal mining is pronounced and affects about 22% of our surface water with contaminants and pollutants such as mercury, etc. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Battles, any supplementary question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. With respect, Mr. Speaker, I have a little application.
Leader, I'll come to you. I want to deal with that particular question. I want to finish with that question, then I'll come to you. So, Honourable Battles, do you have any supplementary question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to find out from the Minister what the ministry is doing to curb the illegal mining. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must humbly say that it's a national war. It's not only the ministry that is fighting it. It's a war against illegal mining that has been declared across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Well. Now, Leader, let me hear you.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, we've agreed to vary order of business and proceed to take item 21, which is a motion, Mr. Speaker. No humility, sir. Mr. Speaker, there has been some miscommunication and it has been so corrected. We would proceed to finish the minister. She has somewhere to go and we would agree that she finishes and goes. Thank you.
Very well. Let's move to question number 1056. 1056. The question stands in a member for Botiano, English, Amanfrum, Honorable Severity. Are you standing in for him? Okay, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources how efficient is the tertiary desalination treatment plant and the extent of its contribution to the supply of water to residents of Teshi and its environs. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, are you listening? Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2011, As part of measures to ameliorate water supply challenges within the Teshinongwa enclave, which is situated at the terminal ends of the Pong and Wager water supply production systems, the construction of a seawater reverse osmosis desalination plant under a public-private partnership arrangement on BOOT basis was considered by the Ghana Water Company Limited. The proposal was to design and develop a 60,000 cubic meter, which is equivalent to 13.2 million gallons of water per day, capacity of the desalination plant for an estimated population size of 500,000 people in the Teshi Nongwa area. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the 450 millimeter HDPE pipeline to uptake the total volume of treated water from the plant, Ghana Water Company Limited requested for the full complement of the contracted capacity of the desalination plant.
Honorable Minister, hold on. Honorable members, it appears nobody is listening to the minister. Nobody. I'm just cool my eyes around. Nobody is listening to the minister. Please, let's be attentive to the minister. That's why you brought her here. Please. Yes, Minister. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Out of the total contracted capacity of 20,999 cubic meters, which is equivalent to 4.620 million gallons, the plant was able to supply 8,311 cubic meters of an equivalent of 1,829 million gallons of water, representing 41% supply efficiency. In 2020, out of the total contracted capacity of 21.057 cubic meters of water, equivalent to 4.633 million gallons of water, the plant was able to supply 12,113 cubic meters of water, representing 59% of the supply efficiency. In 2021, out of the total contracted capacity of 20,999 cubic meters, the plant was able to supply 16,719, which is equivalent to 3,679 million gallons of water, representing 80% supply efficiency. The shortfalls in volume supplied were mainly as a result of breakdown of raw water transmission pipeline in 2019, poor seawater quality, high temperature and total suspended solids, Ghana Water Company Limited network high pressures, ultra filtration challenges, frequent fouling of reverse osmosis racks, breakdown of self-cleaning filters, low tide, internal and external power challenges. Mr. Speaker, from 1st January 2022 to March 31st, 2022, representing the first quarter, out of the expected total contracted capacity of 1,213 million gallons of water, the desalination plant has supplied 478.6 million gallons of water, of treated water to GWCL network, representing 39% supply efficiency for the period. 2 out of 4 of the reverse osmosis filter membrane racks are currently inefficient and directly accounting for the decline in the expected output of the plant, as reported by the plant operator. Mr. Speaker, with the current happenings, GWCL has been unable to provide the required quality of service to the people of Teshi and its environs. To forestall this, the Ministries of Sanitation and Water Resources, Finance, Justice and Attorney General's Department, and the Ghana Water Company Limited are currently involved in the restructuring of the water purchase governing the project and the engagement of a new investor promoted by the plant operator. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Honorable Member for Tafo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to find out from the Minister when this restructuring is supposed to take place.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the meetings are ongoing, so I believe with these challenges, they will be expedited. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We now move to question number 1058. 1058, and the question stands. The member for Menshianov, Honorable Akwasi Konedu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources how much the ministry has received from the Sanitation and Pollution Levy and how those funds are being utilized to tackle sanitation issues in the country, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Finance is responsible for the receipt of the Sanitation and Pollution Levy that we haven't had notice of the accrued amount yet. But we, at the Ministry, we have proposed plans to utilize our portion of the fund across the country in the following areas: solid waste management, infrastructure and services, liquid waste management services, and public sensitization, law enforcement, monitoring and evaluation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Honorable Member, any follow-up question?
No, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Deputy Minority Leader.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just a follow-up question. The Honorable Minister says that the Ministry of Finance did not notify the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources. Yet, the Ministry has planned to use the fund on solid waste management infrastructure services. If you don't know how much you have, how do you plan to utilize the fund?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what I did say was that we have these plans to be executed, and we will liaise with finance to use part of our portion of the fund for those structures. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member for Tafo. Yes, Honorable, let's hear you. Very well. We now move to question number 1237. 1237. And the question stands in the member for Techiman South. Honorable Martin Kokwe J. Mensah. Honorable, you may have the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Honorable Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources the state and scope of the Techiman Water Supply Rehabilitation and Expansion Project under the Korean Economic Development Corporation Fund, EDCF law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the existing water supply system in Techiman, with an installed capacity of 4,500 cubic meters of water per day, which is equivalent to 1 million gallons per day, was commissioned in 1997. The water system over the years has not been rehabilitated and expanded, to meet the ever-increasing water demand of the area. Mr. Speaker, as a result of this growth in population, as well as economic growth in the Techiman municipality, it became necessary to expand the existing water supply system to meet the current and future water demand of Techiman and some identified beneficiary towns. Government secured a concessional loan of $100 million from the Korean Exim Bank to finance the project, scheduled to be completed within 36 months after commencement. Mr. Speaker, the scope of the project includes, inter alia, rehabilitation of the existing raw water intake and water treatment plants of 4,500 cubic meters per day, construction of a weir with a capacity of 550,000 cubic meters on the Kanna River, construction of a new intake and water treatment plant with a capacity of 17,000 cubic meters per day, which is equivalent to 3.8 million gallons per day. Transmission pipelines with a total length of 25 kilometers. Distribution pipelines with a total length of 147 kilometers. There will be a booster pumping station, service pipelines complete with meters, and public standpipes. Mr. Speaker, the current status of the project as I speak is that Parliament graciously granted approval for the loan agreement on the 5th of November 2020. The loan agreement was signed on 17 December 2020. Request for proposal for the consultant for the design and construction supervision was issued out to shortlisted firms for submission by 12 February 2021. Evaluation of the technical proposals for the shortlisted firms have been completed and no objection has been granted by the Korean Exim Bank. Opening of the financial proposal of the firm that won the technical proposal has been completed. Contract award is being processed for the consultant to move to site to undertake detailed feasibility study and design work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable James, any supplementary question?
Mr. Speaker, that'll be all for it.
You okay?
Thank you.
Very well. Yes, honorable member for Techiman North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I rise to further ask the Minister, what date the project will start in earnest? Because in her answer, she stated, and with your kind permission, I read, Korean Exim Bank to finance the project scheduled to be completed within 36 months after commencement. So when is it commencing? Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Yes, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, commencement is when the feasibility has been done and finished and the site designs have been completed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, on behalf of the House, I would like to thank you very much for attending upon the House to answer 11 separate questions. Honorable Minister, we are grateful and you are hereby discharged.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, we may proceed now to item 21, motion. It is so. Mr. Speaker, it is so. We have agreed to seek your leave to proceed, if it so pleases you, Mr. Speaker, with motion, item 21.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, it was discussed. Since it's just a one item, so we'll go back to statement.
Mr. Speaker, as usual, you know you control this House from the East. So we take your leave once again, Mr. Speaker, that the Honorable Minister is unavoidably absent. But one of his able deputies is a member of this House and is present to take that duty in his stead. Mr. Speaker, since I came back on Friday, Muntaka and I, we've been good friends. You shouldn't greet me with Mr. Speaker, I've made this small application. The Honorable Minister is unavoidable. Oh, it's unavoidably absent. The deputy who is one of us is here. I beg you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Application. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, the Deputy Minister is one of our colleagues, no doubt about his capability to do this. But, Mr. Speaker, ministers cannot relegate the business of this House to their deputies and then come to ask for varying of business of the House. The minister should be here himself. I hope he's not busy out there campaigning at the detriment of Parliament, his duties in Parliament. But, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Murphy is a colleague, and I have no doubt that he's capable of doing this. So we will grant him, but we hope that the minister will find time to be in the House, to be attending to the business of his ministry, and not returning his deputies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I'm most grateful.
Yes. Honorable members, shall I invite you to page number 17?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, let's turn to page 17, item 21, motion. Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister.
I rise to move that the Ghana Standards Authority Bill 2022 be now read the third time. I so move, the Speaker.
Yes. Can I invite Honorable Amakufi-Boa to second the motion?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Honorable members, the motion has been moved and it has been seconded. It is for the consideration of the House. I will then move to put the question, and the question is, as many as are in favor of the motion say aye. Those against the motion say no. Honorable members, it is obvious the ayes have it. The motion is adopted.
An act to establish the Ghana Standards Authority, amend and consolidate the law relating to standardization, conformity assessment and metrology, and to provide for related matters.
Honorable members, the Ghana Standard Authority Bill 2022 duly read the third time and passed. Yes, leadership.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the majority leader, we thank the committee for their industry, and we hope that the agency will be fortified in discharging its duty in helping the economy. Mr. Speaker, we are thankful to the House and you, Mr. Speaker, especially the technical team, the clerk at table. We thank all of them.
Leader, can we move to item number 7?
Mr. Speaker, at this stage, as it pleases you. As it pleases you, sir. Item number 7.
He admitted a number of 6.
6.
Presentation.
Yeah, presentation.
Presentation.
Mr. Speaker, I won't mind you today. I won't mind you.
I believe you pray for the order to be changed, and if that's so, then we can take item 7, then we come back to statement. Majority Leader, I don't know whether it pleases you to do that.
Funds for the year ended 31st December 2019.
Honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is referred to the Public Accounts Committee for consideration and report. So we move to 7AII.
Report of the Auditor General on the accounts of district assemblies for the financial year ended 31st December 2019.
Honourable members, the report is duly presented. It will refer to the Public Accounts Committee for consideration and report. II.
Report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana pre-university educational institutions for the financial year ended 31st December 2019.
Honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is referred to the Public Accounts Committee for consideration and report. IV.
Report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana technical universities and polytechnics for the period ended 31st December 2019.
Honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is referred to the Public Accounts Committee for consideration and report. V.
Report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana, ministries, departments, and other agencies of the central government for the year ended 31st December 2019.
Honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is referred to the Public Accounts Committee for consideration and report. We move to VI.
Report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana, public boards, corporations, and other statutory institutions for the period ended 31st December 2019.
Honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is referred to the Public Accounts Committee for consideration and report. Shall we take the B?
Speaker, with respect, if I may present the paper on behalf of the Minister responsible for Finance, that is 7B.
Request for waiver of import duties, import VAT, get fund levy, NHIL, EXIM levy, special import levy, COVID-19 levy, and domestic VAT amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of 4,656,272 euros and 90 cents, made up of 3,770,234 euros on imports and 886,038 euros 90 cents on local purchases, on materials, equipment, and services, works to be procured for the construction and equipping of the Shama District Hospital in the Western Region by Mrs. Polly Changda Overseas Engineering Company Limited of China.
Yes, honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report. Yes, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this issue is a finance issue. Last week, Mr. Speaker gave a directive that a committee on finance should not handle any finance issue until the minister appears in the chamber to respond to issues outstanding. So I want to remind you, this is also referred to the finance committee, so if you can also give same directive. If not, they will go and work on it and bring a report.
Well. Yes.
Speaker, I was going to plead that we ask the leadership of the Committee on Health to the consideration of the matter that's been referred to the Finance Committee. Just the leadership of the Committee on Health to join them in that exercise. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow is Wednesday, and we said that after the referral, the committee may have to wait until the minister came with the statements and also to answer those questions that are outstanding. It's just tomorrow. So once he finishes, I guess they will pay for that. But I want us to be straight with ourselves that it's a decision of the House, not the Speaker. The Speaker only encapsulated the sentiments of the House. Because in truth, a Speaker cannot say that a committee cannot do this. It's a collective sentiments of the House that the Speaker represented. Because technically, the Speaker cannot direct that I will not allow a committee to work on any referral. That is unacceptable, and technically it's unacceptable. But I want to believe that what the Speaker said represented the sentiments of the House. But are you saying that the Speaker ruled? He cannot rule on this matter. I thank you.
Who? Well. Shall we move back to statement time? Yes, leader.
Mr. Speaker, there is a major matter that we should be dealing with. But then you had given an indication to the Honorable Champon to make a statement. So perhaps we may have to stand down the consideration of item listed as 14 and then listen to the statements from, understand, the Honorable Champon and two others. So you have to manage the time, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't allow too many contributions to the statements that were made by my colleagues. And then we can move on to item 14 once we are through them.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Champon, let's hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I come under Order 72 of our standing orders, which reads, by the indulgence of the House and leave of Mr. Speaker, a member may, at the time appointed for sitting under Order 53, express a matter of personal nature or make a statement on a matter of urgent public importance, and the rest follow. Mr. Speaker, I have in my possession a letter dated 16th of June 2022. I've already given a copy to Mr. Speaker with the caption, Implementation of Management Decision, Outsourcing of Rehabilitation Farmhands to Private Service Providers. Mr. Speaker, I will just read a small part of it so that I will make my main statement in respect of that. Mr. Speaker, the letter was signed by Dr. Emmanuel Taki Otu, who is Executive Director of COCOBOD. And I'll read the letter. Following the Chief Executive's directive to cease activities...
Honorable Champon, hold on a bit. Yes. Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm on my feet as a matter of procedure because my colleague, before proceeding, had invoked procedure. Mr. Speaker, a statement that has been admitted by you, that has been considered as admissible, cannot be preceded with some other letter which was not part of the statement which was so admitted. In any event, Mr. Speaker, even if it was so done, it was so done for the purpose of backing the application for admissibility. Mr. Speaker, it has never been. Let's take it easy. Else we set a bad precedent that would haunt us one day. Mr. Speaker, it has never been part. Mr. Speaker, it has never been part of the jurisprudence of this House.
that when a statement is admitted and a member is to read that statement, he now moves into another territory by saying that accompanying fact, which fact he used to support his application, must also be read with the sole aim of perhaps attacking an individual's reputation. The name you are going to mention, the person is not here. You are about to mention a name. That person has no right of audience on this floor. And I go by the rule by Honorable Muntaka Mubarak. Mr. Speaker, I am relying on the wisdom of Honorable Muntaka Mubarak. In a certain expert application I made regarding Joy FM, I was guided by his wisdom, whereupon he said, Joy FM may be wrong, but I have another forum to deal with it, and that because Joy FM has no right of audience, I could not come specifically on issues regarding Joy FM. On the basis of that, Mr. Speaker, it is my prayer that the honorable colleague should just proceed with his statement and read his statement and not be going into some letters he spotted this year and there. Else we may have to wait to get the person whose name we mentioned to come here and have the right of audience. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Mr. Speaker, we will respect procedure. There are senior lawyers here who know it. We know. The order he quoted said a statement be read. That is what Order 72 says. No Order 72 that he himself quoted to rely on for what he is doing says that a statement that has been admitted of public importance, that is why it has been admitted. The memorandum that you attach for Mr. Speaker to consider cannot be part of your submission. It cannot. Mr. Speaker, let's not set a bad precedent that would haunt this house. Posterity is watching. Mr. Speaker, we should not. Senior Yini, you know it. We should not. I'm not afraid of anything, but we should respect procedure. You, Honorable Muntaka, you have been guiding us with procedure. Well, but we should assist Speaker. We should assist Speaker. But you are unduly frustrating my submission. Mr. Speaker, at the risk of being repetitive, it is my submission that he can only read the statement as admitted and nothing more.
Yes, let me hear the leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member is coming under Order 72, and the statement is of urgent public importance. Mr. Speaker, the member reading the letter is to strengthen the point he's making. But if he insists that he should not read the letter, we will advise the member to go by his statement. He is there to read the letter to strengthen. But if you are against that, you will make his point. Thank you.
Anyway, honorable member, just go ahead and read the statement.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I don't know the fears of my colleague and the lamentation that he sought to give this morning. Because for the consumption of the House, before the statement is read, you will come back to ask what is the evidence. I want to give a background. But if you are afraid about the background, I'll go ahead and read the statement so that you can't come back asking for any evidence whatsoever. Mr. Speaker, I therefore call on you to invite the minister responsible for agriculture to come and explain to the good people of this country through Parliament why Cocoa Board intended to take this very decision. My request, Mr. Speaker, hints on the fact that in Bia East alone, 1,700 hectares of cocoa farmlands are under the rehabilitation program, of which 1,800,000 plantain acres are required before cocoa seedlings could be planted. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, only 30,000 plantain acres have been supplied and distributed to farmers, which translates into about 1.7%. In addition to the above statistics, Mr. Speaker, Cocoa Board is owing the workers that's the weeding ground since April 2022. The question is, Mr. Speaker, if government, with all the financial muscles, could not maintain these farms, could not pay weeding grounds, how on earth can private service provider carry this very burden? Meanwhile, a provision was made in the 2021-2022 cocoa syndication loan contracted to purchase cocoa beans. Mr. Speaker, the question is, where is the money?
The minister must come and explain to us, because the workers as well as the affected cocoa farmers are going through hell. I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this statement is a very important one. Mr. Speaker, these are statements that help this House to be proactive, not to wait after a complete mess has been created. Then we now come and we are crying through the roof of wrongdoings happening. Mr. Speaker, we know the structure of the Cocoa Board with all its extension services and the quality assurance, all those groupings. If for any reason that Cocoa Board thinks that some component of the work of the extension services could be privatized because they are not able to pay promptly, then, Mr. Speaker, all of us need to be asking, at what cost? At what cost will that be to the state? What will be the mechanism for them to use to even ensure that the proper things are being done? Mr. Speaker, I'm a cocoa farmer myself, even though I'm an absentee one. When we look at the challenges that the cocoa farms and their managers are going through across the country, it's not surprising, Mr. Speaker, we are having dwindling production levels. And if we are not careful, and this lackadaisical attitude is entertained, what we are going to see is simply pumping so much money into the system in the name of trying to improve production, and yet the outcome will be disastrous. I strongly believe that the minister has questions to answer, and he must be encouraged to come to the House, even if it is going to be in a committee of the whole. It's better than not to act and wait until they do this privatization, where at the end of the day, people do not just carry out any services, and yet will take government money. And Mr. Speaker, you and I are very much to many other things that are happening under this so-called trying to, outsource these services to private sector. This cocoa industry in our country is one of our main sustenance of our economy. If we just allow it to be treated the way they are planning to do, the consequences may be very dire. And Mr. Speaker, it is important that we get the minister to come to the House, to come and explain the rationale, and be able to convince us beyond reasonable doubt. If we sit and allow this to happen, and then a year or two later, we all start crying that so much money has been paid private people and they've not done any work, we will have ourselves to blame. Without mentioning specific private companies that have been outsourced by government, the Speaker, many of them, due to liquidity issues, do not carry out the functions. But the moment monies are available, they will present reports to indicate that they've done all the work over the period and claim the money, even when those works have not been properly done. Ghana Cocoa Board has been in existence long even before our independence. And it is one institution, the Speaker, having worked in that sector, is one institution that has a lot of structure that is capable of holding the cocoa industry for it to be more productive. This attitude of trying to outsource and give it out to private individuals, it will be a dangerous one. And I want, Mr. Speaker, to add my voice to the maker of the statement that we get the Minister for Agri to come to the House to explain to us in much details the rationale behind this and why he thinks this will be a better venture to enter into than the current arrangement. With this comment, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend my colleague for bringing the attention of the House to this very important situation. And I hope that once again the House will not sit aloof, but will act proactively to ensure that the right things are done. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, first of all, leadership. Leadership.
Are you the Speaker?
Leadership normally would wind up.
Are you the Speaker?
The Speaker called me.
No, but but when I look at this side, I didn't see. That's why.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker,
so,
for this
leader,
opportunity.
Leader, once I've already called him.
No, thank you,
but I didn't
Speaker.
see you. That's why I
No,
tell.
no, I'm not. No, go on, Enkasa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader,
leader,
let him give him 2 minutes. Let him give him 2
Thank
minutes.
you,
I'll
Mr.
come to
Speaker.
you. Yeah, leader.
Mr. Speaker. No, he called me.
I'll come to you.
Thank you.
John.
Janice man.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
John.
Right Honourable Speaker.
John, let's arrange it this way. Let's arrange it this way. Let him go to Dr. Stephen Amoa. I'll come to you, then leader will conclude. So, Dr. Stephen Amoa, let me hear you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this great opportunity. Mr. Speaker, as much as partially I side with my brother from the other side of the political divide, of course, cocoa plays very critical role in the socio-economic development framework of this country. And that anything that will create deficit in terms of our outlays to the key stakeholders, i.e. farmers, etc., we need to give it the needed attention and concentration as a country. However, Mr. Speaker, if we try to politicize everything with cocoa farms, then some of us will let them have the historical record. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you've heard the word Ghana to Ghana before. This thing was Ghana to Ghana. Mr. Speaker, this was very common household name during the time of my brothers NDC when they were in power. Mr. Speaker, even cocoa farmers who have weighed their cocoa, gone to the banks to take their money, under their regime, they were not even having money to pay them. So what they used to do culturally, the man would tell the wife that my wife, Akwesi is about to go to school. They are not paying us for our cocoa. I am taking my check to a Ghanaian, a fellow Ghanaian, to pay me if it's 100 cedis. The person will be paid 80 cedis. And that is why this whole thing came Ghana to Ghana. Mr. Speaker, what point am I making? I'm making this point to let them understand that if you are talking about their inability to perform their obligation in the area of the cocoa sector, they don't have even the moral right to actually be here and complain the way they are talking. Except that, Mr. Speaker, except that we all agree it is an essential commodity area that we need to give it the needed attention. Two, Mr. Speaker, any Tom, Dick and Harry who is abreast with what is happening in the world and in Ghana understands the fact that we are having quite stressed, and I emphasize the word stressed, fiscal space. So liquidity, just like any other country in the world, is a big challenge to even the US, UK, and other places. So in the attempt to trying to solve some of these problems, let us do that in the right context and take away politics. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the year 2014, some cocoa farmers have to sell their farms at a reduced price because
the cocoa farms were taken over by Akati because other things they need, fertilizers and spraying bodies. My brothers had looked out for those things to be transported across our borders. The point I'm making is that, yes, it is true, we have challenges today. They shouldn't behave as if their time it was even better or equal to our situation today. The point I'm making is that, Mr. Speaker, let us compare the real variables and the parameters of our fiscal space this time against them. Let us understand the outlier situation we find ourselves in. And even the attempt by our government today, making sure that the whole problem we are having globally is being mitigated because of good governance, which they couldn't. Mr. Speaker, if NDC had been in power today, the problems cocoa farmers are going would have been quadrupled. They couldn't have done anything, even equal to what is happening. So when they are talking, they should display the right comparable parameters for us to understand the fact that this is the time that we are having a government that understands the matrix of factors that we are managing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker. First of all,
honourable members, please.
Let me commend the Honourable Richard Echampong, a member of the Finance Committee, for his indefatigable way of conducting research. Mr. Speaker, when I read the document, I am convinced beyond reasonable doubt that he spent sleepless nights working on these statements. Mr. Speaker, but let me correct an erroneous impression that is being created here. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record, and you always encourage us that when we speak, we should speak with facts. We should speak with evidence. Mr. Speaker, I refer you to the utilization of the 2019-2020 facility, the first drawdown of the AFDB loan, and the 2020-2021 syndicated loan presented to this House by the Finance Committee. And Mr. Speaker, I take you to page 2, table 1. It talks about volumes in terms of production of cocoa in Ghana. I'm saying so because the gentleman, Mr. Stephen Amwa, says that there was a cutting. Production was so low to the extent that farmers were cutting down their trees and selling them. This is the production volume. 2014-2015, the volume cocoa production. 2014-2015, 2013-2014, 896,000 metric tons. Today, this year, 2019-2020, 756,000 metric tons. Mr. Speaker, the year that Stephen Amwa claims that it was worse, it was bad, we produced 890-something thousand. The year that he says they've done so well, they produced 756,000. Mr. Speaker, I understand that he's a first timer, and we need to walk him through the rudiments of some. So I wouldn't belabor the point, Mr. Speaker. I'll leave it there, Mr. Speaker. I'll leave it there because when we are making statements, we do not want to generate debates.
Honourable members, please.
Sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that my colleague from the other side is being unfair to our colleague who just presented his facts or his opinion on the report on the floor. Mr. Speaker, to refer to him as a first timer, so he needs to be handheld and walk through the corridors of whatever he said. I think it's unfair. Yes, he's a first timer. We've all been first timers before. In fact, I wish that you will withdraw this statement. Otherwise, you are telling everyone.
Honourable members, Please, let's listen to him. So that when you also get up, people
I hope that this unruly behavior will be controlled. So what I'm saying is, I think that my colleague is unfair to Honorable Dr. Stephen Amwa by referring to him as a first timer and blah blah blah. I hope that he would see the honorable member as a very educated person and knowledgeable in whatever he discusses or here on the floor. So in saying that you are trying to demean that doctor, and I want you to withdraw and apologize. Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Let me hear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what my colleague was trying to achieve, because these standing orders are the guide. And our hope was that he was going to quote the relevant standing orders to buttress the point that referring to us in terms of terms, like I would just say the member for Swami, the majority leader, who is a seventh timer, and Honorable Afeyo Markins, who is a third timer. How does this offend our rules? So you should show us in our standing orders where this offends the rules. Carefully before you leave. There's no way that offends, and we use that, Mr. Speaker, just to let each other appreciate how long or short we have stayed in this house. There's nothing wrong with it, unless we can provide evidence that these standing orders from the use of referring to each other, the number of times we've done. Mr. Speaker, I think it should be ruled to be out of order so that my colleague can control making statements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Vice Honorable Speaker, all I did was to set the record straight. Mr. Speaker, and if there's anybody that I have learned from in terms of experience, it's Honorable Oseche Mensah. A seventh timer who has proved that as you stay long in this house, you gain wisdom, you mature, and you metamorphosize and gravitate and graduate into the realm of knowledge personified. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on that note, Mr. Speaker, it's important that we pay attention to this critical issue, because the document I was referring to even talks about the allocations. And if you look at the allocations, Mr. Speaker, a whopping 68 million was allocated for hand pollination and 140 million for these purposes. So beyond the issues that we are talking about, this is a very important issue, because cocoa is a main cash crop that generates a lot of revenue for this country. Some of us who were trained as agriculturists, we understand the benefit of cocoa, not just the economic aspect, but even the ecological aspect, the environmental aspect of it. So, Mr. Speaker, he has made an application to you that if you may consider, probably through leadership, so the minister can brief us so we know where we are, especially as we are seeing the volumes declining. It's quite worrying. On that note, Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for indulging me. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
I don't know. I think the chairman of the Agri Committee would like to speak with that. Yes. Chairman, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend my colleague, Honorable Echampong, for coming up with this. That you want the House to invite the Minister to come and explain what is happening in the cocoa sector to Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, the last part of 2021, my good self and the leadership of Agri Committee, together with members of the Finance Committee, took a trip to some cocoa growing areas in Ghana, about 6 regions. Mr. Speaker, what we found out there was so impressive to the extent that the members who were present commended Cocoa Board and the regional managers for coming out with such program to bring out the result we had in the last growing season. Mr. Speaker, some time has lapsed. So if my colleague has found out that there's a letter going around telling them to cease operation and that the Cocoa Board is going to outsource the program to private members, I think what is right for us to do as a committee, and for that matter, the finance committee also championed the syndication fund, that we need to invite Cocoa Board first to find out what has gone on so far. Beyond that, I think the minister can also add his voice to it. So I want to make it clear to the House that Cocoa Board has done very well with regard to what they are doing, with regard to the rehabilitation of cocoa farms and other programs that brought out the results we had last cocoa season. Mr. Speaker, as the chairman of the committee, I'll also call my members to have a discussion with the management of Cocoa Board so that we can also properly brief the House when the time comes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Yes, let me come to leadership.
Speaker, I think we've heard the member raise a very important matter. But I thought that when such an important matter is to be raised in the House, just so that it doesn't leave the House unattended to, or the relevant minister would be summoned to the House at the time the statement is to be made, so that we can have some proper response to it. And then it positions us to appreciate the issues raised. But if, as increasingly is happening these days, the Speaker is ambushed, it's an urgent statement, it comes and we are not wiser by the statement that is made in the House. I think that the better arrangement, and in this particular case, Mr. Speaker, if we had the minority chief whip in his own response, he was talking about the fact that there are some outstanding issues that may have to be responded to by the minister. What is being done? What is the cost? He said, at what cost? And what is the mechanism that is being employed to pursue what you are referring to? So this third statement that you made, how does it achieve the purpose? As far as I'm concerned, it should have been a question. The vehicle should have been a question, so that the minister will come and respond to it. How do you come and submit such a statement? How is the House made wiser by this? I'm not too sure that we are attaining or achieving the results that is intended to be achieved by the statement that you have just made. The House is not made richer or wiser by such choice of vehicle. I'm not sure that that is the way to grow Parliament. Mr. Speaker, but it's not to downplay the issue that he has raised. I'm only saying that there should have been a better vehicle to prosecute this matter. A question, whether an urgent question or perhaps even a motion. The purpose of the statement that you make really is not to engender any debate. The question, if the minister comes to respond to it, if it's not adequate, the House can hold his tail. Even a motion that the House must pursue a course. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm not too sure that I agree with my colleague on the choice of the vehicle, just a text statement, and that's the end of it. I don't think so at all. A question would have been much, much better. And indeed, as one of the colleagues also related to, we are relegating the business of the various committees to the background. The Constitution provides in Article 103 what the purpose of committees of Parliament are supposed to be. I'm Speaker, for the elucidation of colleagues. Article 103.3 provides, and if you can indulge us, Mr. Speaker, I may want to read, that committees of Parliament shall be charged with such functions, including the investigation and inquiry into the activities and administrations of ministries and departments, as Parliament may determine. So you should have used that vehicle. And if anybody is found wanting or culpable, then it would have come up that somebody is shortchanging this country by the allocations of sums of monies that have been made to that department or unit. So, Mr. Speaker, as I said, not to overflow the issue, I agree that the matter raised is germane, is relevant. I'm not too sure that I support the vehicle that he elected to bring the matter to the chamber. It doesn't help us to bring the facts out, facts that really all of us can relate to. So, Mr. Speaker, I would think that as a sequel, if maybe the relevant questions could be raised, whether urgent questions, I think it will help the House better than the statement that has been made in the House. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
So, leadership, let him be clear. So, in this sense, should I ask the member to put it in question, or you should give it to the committee to work on it, or we should ask the minister to come and respond to it? I'm a bit, because as you said, the vehicle he chose is a bit open. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I would prefer that you refer this matter to the committee on agri immediately, to go into it and maybe report to this House within a very short time, maybe about 2 weeks before we adjourn, so that we were able to unearth the truth about this. Because if the minister is invited to come and give a statement, he comes to offer the statement. There's no investigation on the part of Parliament. Whatever he comes to tell us, we may be obliged to take it hook, line, and sinker. The committee goes into it. It will bring out better results, and all of us will be better educated. So I think that the directive will be to forward this to the committee and charge them with the responsibility of going deeper into it and coming out with their findings, as I'm saying, because Parliament has to adjourn on I think 24th or so, is it 24th or 27th of July. We can give them a limited time, not more than 3 weeks, to report back to this House what their findings are. This week, thank you.
Well. Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I could have agreed with the majority leader better. I support what he says. If we can get the Agri Committee to quickly look at it, Mr. Speaker, I even think a week should do, but then I was starting just to make sure that we get the report before we rise. Since, Mr. Speaker, the majority leader is aware that that's one of the things we are trying to cure in the new standing orders. Because as you read, the 103, yes, but when you come to our standing orders, the committee on their own cannot just go working and be able to find space to report on the floor unless the matter is referred to them. So I think this vehicle gives us the opportunity now to refer it to them so that they can work on it and report to us. And I agree with him. This is urgent, and we must be able to get a report from the Agri and Cocoa Affairs Committee before we go on recess. Except to add, Mr. Speaker, because of the syndicated loan, if we could add the leadership of the Finance Committee to the committee, so that since they've been managing the syndicated loans, it may be very useful. Even if the chair and ranking cannot join, they may choose 1 or 2 people from their committee to join the Agri and Cocoa Affairs Committee to be able to furnish us with a report before we go on recess. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I think that we may have to let the Finance Committee select some members from the own committee to join ranks with them. If you limit to the leadership, given the volume of work that's been assigned to the Finance Committee, the leadership may not be able to join them, and in the process they may stall the work. So let the Finance Committee, in meeting, appoint maybe a couple of their own to join with them, not necessarily the leadership. If the leadership, they will stall the business. That's what we refer to them.
Very well. So, honorable members, the issue that has been raised from the statement from our brother is referred to the Agric and Cocoa Affairs Committee. You are given 2 weeks to report back. But as said, we will ask the leadership of Finance Committee to liaise with you or join you to investigate and report back to this house by 2 weeks' time. I so direct. So let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, I understand there are two other statements. I don't know the nature of those statements. If maybe
World Refugees Day, Refugees
Day. Okay, and then the other one is?
And the other one is, I think that one is personal. Dissemination of our local music. Decimation of our local music industry.
Mr. Speaker, the other one is a commemorative statement.
Yes.
So if the member could read it into the record without attracting any comments, and then we can do the other motion, and then come back to the third statement.
Well.
So let's deal with the commemorative statement.
So, honorable member for South Honorable Roxanne Fiamapo, on the occasion of World Refugees Day 2022, you may now have the floor.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to make this very important statement to commemorate the World Refugees Day. Mr. Speaker, may I humbly request of the table office to capture the entire statement, and so that I will, for the sake of inadequacy of time, I will touch on the salient portions. Mr. Speaker, the World Refugee Day is commemorated every 20th of June. Mr. Speaker, it's a day marked to honor refugees across the world and aims to strengthen and aims to consider the strength and courage of people who have been forced to flee their home country to escape conflict or persecution. World Refugee Day is an occasion to build empathy and understanding for their plight and to recognize their resilience in rebuilding their lives. Mr. Speaker, a refugee, according to the UNHCR External Relations publication of New Delhi in May 2008, states that it's a person who has fled his or her country owing to well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. Mr. Speaker, and that is outside the country of his or her nationality and is unable or owing to such fear is unwilling to avail himself or herself to the protection of that country. Mr. Speaker, the Office of the United Nations Human High Commission for Refugees, UNHCR, was created in 1950 during the aftermath of the Second World War. Mr. Speaker, to help many Europeans who had fled or lost their homes in and during the Second World War. However, Mr. Speaker, in 1967, a protocol was expanded to include, as part of its scope, a convention as the problem of displacement and spread of refugee issues around the world began. It removed the geographical and time limitations written into the original convention, under which mainly Europeans involved in events occurring before 1st January 1951 could apply for refugee status. Mr. Speaker, the 1951 Geneva Convention relating to the status of refugees clearly spelled out for the first time who a refugee is and the kind of legal protection, other assistance, and social and economic rights he or she should receive from countries which have signed the convention. Mr. Speaker, refugees have certain rights under the 1951 Convention and the 1970 Protocol. Even in countries where they have not signed onto these conventions and protocols, these rights are by and large respected as they become part of their national legislation on refugees in those countries, or they are guaranteed in the constitution of that country. In brief, Mr. Speaker, the rights of refugees include the right not to be returned to a country where they are likely to face persecution. That's what we call the principle of non-refoulement. B, the right not to be expelled except under certain strictly defined conditions. C, Mr. Speaker, exemption from penalties for illegal entry into the territory of a contracting state. D, Mr. Speaker, freedom of religion and free access to courts. E, freedom of movement. F, the identity papers and travel documents. And G, the right to public education. Mr. Speaker, this can be sourced from the UNHCR website. Mr. Speaker, World Vision has, as part of its records, an article published by Catherine Reid on 7th of June 2022 under the heading Forced to Flee, Top Countries Refugees Are Coming From. Mr. Speaker, the essence of this article provides that there are as much as 82.4 million people worldwide who have been forced to flee from their homes. Mr. Speaker, the article further provides that about 26.4 million people have fled to other countries as refugees. Mr. Speaker, another 4.1 million people are asylum seekers who have applied for refugee status but not received yet. Mr. Speaker, the article further states that an estimated 42% of refugees are children, among whom are about 1 million born as refugees from about 2018 and 2020. Mr. Speaker, the top 5 countries of origin that account for the most refugees in the world today, according to the World Vision records, are as follows. Syria, 6.8 million refugees and asylum seekers. 2, Venezuela, 5.4 million refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants. C, Afghanistan has 2.8 million refugees and asylum seekers. D, Mr. Speaker, South Sudan accounts for some 2.2 million refugees and asylum seekers. And E, Mr. Speaker, Myanmar, formerly Burma, has 1.1 million refugees and asylum seekers. Mr. Speaker, as if this is not all, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees says that Sub-Saharan Africa is home to more than a quarter of the world's refugees, and that's over 18 million people. Mr. Speaker, the number of refugees has risen dramatically in recent years, owing in part to ongoing conflicts in Central African Republic, Nigeria, South Sudan, and Burundi. Mr. Speaker, refugee camps, which began in the Horn of Africa, are now cropping up in all of Africa's sub-Saharan regions, particularly in West and Southern Africa. Conflicts, civil unrest, natural calamities, authoritarian regimes, and human rights violations are among the triggers. Mr. Speaker, while previous causes of refugee flows have subsided, New ones have developed, further complicating the issue and the quest for long-term solutions. Mr. Speaker, countries in Africa with the highest refugee burdens as per the UNHCR records are as follows. Ethiopia has 659,000 refugees. Kenya has 551,000 refugees. Chad has 453,000 refugees. Uganda has 386,000, and Cameroon has 264,000. Mr. Speaker, the recent hostilities between Ukraine and Russia, which has resulted in bombardments, has serious ramifications for especially Ukrainians. Mr. Speaker, the records will bear me out that the situation has displaced several Ukrainians, according to a BBC source, which was published on 15th June 2022 under the heading, "How many Ukrainian refugees are there and where have they gone?" Mr. Speaker, the publication states that more than 13 million people have fled their homes since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, the United Nations says that almost 5 million have left for neighboring countries and 8 million have been displaced within Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, the publication further states that UN estimates that more than 4.9 Ukrainian refugees have been reported across Europe as of June 9, 2022. Mr. Speaker, more than 3.2 million people have sought for temporary residence in Europe. The countries with the highest Ukrainian displacement or displaced persons are Poland, Russia itself, Romania, Moldova, Slovakia, and Belarus. Mr. Speaker, the UN further says that more than 780,000 Ukrainians live in Germany, whilst 366,000 live in the Czech Republic, and an additional 145,000 now live in Turkey. Mr. Speaker, leaving the generals and now to the specifics, Ghana has played host to several refugees as part of our obligation towards humanity under the 1967 Geneva Protocol. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Refugee Board, with the help of the UNHCR branch office in Accra, has played host to refugees who were taken to Ghana since the year 1990. In 1990, Ghana created refugee camps to provide accommodation to various individuals displaced on the continent due to violent conflicts mainly. Mention can be made of camps such as the Christian refugee camp, the Ampan refugee camp in Greater Accra. We also have the Greater Accra refugee camp, the Ejaikom refugee camp, the Fetenta refugee camp, as well as the famous Buduburam refugee camp. Mr. Speaker, Buduburam was very instrumental in our humanitarian activities to Africa. The camp was located 44 kilometers away from Accra on the Accra-Cape Coast Highway. It was established in 1990 with the help of the Ghana Refugee Board as well as the UNHCR. Mr. Speaker, the camp was home to more than 12,000 Liberian refugees who were brought into the country in 1990 during the first Liberian Civil War between 1989 and 1996, and the second one between 1999 and 2003. Mr. Speaker, in addition to refugees from Sierra Leone who escaped from their war between 1991 and 2002, in January 2012, the UNHCR announced steps to close down the camp. Mr. Speaker, this sets in motion the tone for the closure of the Buduburam camp. Mr. Speaker, to further drive the point home, we are told that refugee status adversely affects a lot of children, and the 5 critical areas that they are mostly affected include the following: Mr. Speaker, they have limited access to quality education. 2, they have compromised mental health and the threat of loss of childhood. 3, there's a separation from families and greater vulnerability. Mr. Speaker, as regards greater vulnerability, the UNHCR estimates that at least 300,000 unaccompanied and separated children were registered in 80 countries over the course of 2 years, and many of these children are said to have been separated from their families. Mr. Speaker, the 4th adverse factor that affects children that are caught up in this crisis include shifting family dynamics and responsibilities. Mr. Speaker, the last but not the least among these factors include isolation in host communities. Mr. Speaker, we are told that this year's World Refugee Day 2022 is being celebrated under the theme, whoever, wherever, whenever, everyone has the right to seek safety. Mr. Speaker, whoever is explained to mean that people forced to flee should be treated with dignity. And wherever means that people forced to flee should be welcomed. Whenever, Mr. Speaker, is explained to mean that they have the right to be protected. Mr. Speaker, may I conclude by saying that we want to encourage the world to use the dialogue to deal with threats of conflict. Government must be concerned more about its responsibilities towards the citizens and be committed to creating peaceful and safer environments for their people in order to enable us build a world free from refugees. Mr. Speaker, may I conclude by saying for 2022, we must all protect people who come to us as refugees. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, that is a commemorative statement. There's another one, and I'll plead with colleagues that I think the highlights, as espoused by the maker of the statement, really captures everything. So if we may go to the next statement.
So, Leader, are you going to item 8?
Mr. Speaker, I understand there is a third statement.
Yes.
In your custody. I'm inviting you for us to take that one too, and then we move on.
So that you do the discussion?
Yes.
Very well. So, honorable members, let me invite you to also ask a member for Tema Central Constituency on a statement, see something, on a hashtag, see something, say something campaign by the Ministry of National Security. So, honorable member for Tema Central, Honorable Ninoy, you may now take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the National Security Strategy of Ghana, launched in 2020, is a response to the changing nature of the security threats to the country, while highlighting contemporary methods of addressing them. The central theme of the strategy is the usage of the whole government and whole of society approach, grounded in the principles of unity of purpose in combating security threats. In line with this approach, the Ministry of National Security on May 24, 2020, launched the See Something, Say Something campaign to encourage citizens to report suspicious activities in their communities, particularly those relating to terrorism. Citizens can report such activities to the nearest police station, to the community leaders, and through a call to the short code 999 or a message to the social media handles of the Ghana Police Service. Mr. Speaker,
Statistics from the 2022 Global Terrorism Index indicates that Sub-Saharan Africa has suffered a staggering 48% of all terrorism-related deaths globally. Most of these casualties come from Nigeria, Niger, Mali, the DRC, and our closest neighbor, Burkina Faso. An analysis of the recent threat of terrorist attacks in the sub-region highlights a southward drive to littoral states along the Gulf of Guinea. The most recent of these attacks were in the Republic of Togo, where 8 soldiers were killed and 13 wounded. Hitherto, Togo had been spared from the scourge of terrorism. With terrorism hitting close to home, it behoves us to put in place strategies to prevent the spread of this canker into our beloved country, Ghana. After all, when you see your neighbor's beard on fire, it's advisable to get water by yours. Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying that terrorism has dire effects on the political stability as well as the socio-economic development of any country. Mr. Speaker, in Burkina Faso, for instance, the disposition of the former President Roch Kabore on January 24, 2022, or the deposition of the former President Roch Kabore on January 24, 2022, was allegedly fueled by his inability to curtail jihadist expansion in the country, particularly after the November 14, 2021 terrorist attack on the Inata Gendarmerie garrison in northern Burkina Faso that left 53 of the 120 troops dead. After 30 years of peace and democracy in Ghana, it is imperative that we prevent terrorists from eroding gains made in the Fourth Republic. The menace will further derail international trade and investment in our country. There will be no liberty to access basic amenities of life. To epitomize this, Burkina has witnessed the closure of over 1,000 schools and the internal displacement of 1.5 million people, some of whom have sought refuge in the northern regions of Ghana. Is this what we want to see for our country? Certainly not. Mr. Speaker, having established the effects terrorism would have on our nation, what exactly are we to look out for in our effort to notify security and intelligence agencies of suspicious activities related to terrorism? An analysis of the modus operandi of terrorists seems to point to recruiters targeting young people and through social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp, enticing them with promises of competitive remuneration or a better life in heaven. Consequently, should we see any person or organization mobilizing young people for an unclear agenda or revolving around religious fundamentalism, we must say something for our security and intelligence agencies to monitor and assess the situation. Social media users must also report posts with violence or religious fundamentalist elements, particularly videos showing people brandishing arms or how to make improvised devices and chemical weapons. Mr. Speaker, the campaign is laudable and deserves more attention than it currently has. A synopsis of the recent attacks on a school in Texas by Salvador Ramos shows that he had revealed his sinister plans to a Facebook friend before he executed them. Had this person been conscious of the telltale signs of the impending doom, she would have said something when she saw the messages. Mr. Speaker, the latest of them all is the deadly massacre on Sunday, 5th June 2020, of over 100 members of a Catholic parish at Owo in the Ondo State of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, we commiserate with the families of the victims and the Nigerian people, with whom we share so many things in common. Mr. Speaker and members of this Honorable House, as stakeholders in our communities, let us conscientize our constituents about the threat of terrorism, to encourage them to say something when they see something. In so doing, we'll be fulfilling our civic responsibilities of defending the cause of freedom and of rights espoused in our national anthem. When we see something, we say something. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to make this very important statement. Thank you.
So we'll invite contributors to both statements. So if you may decide which statement to contribute. Yes, let me listen to the honorable member for, is it Kole Krote?
Yes, Right Honourable Speaker, Klote Kole. Right Honourable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the statements made by members on the commemoration of the International Day for Refugees, as well as that on national security. Mr. Speaker, in speaking about refugees, there's a tendency to forget that a huge number of people that we don't avert our attention to are the internally displaced persons. And by definition, they satisfy all the other criteria for refugees except that they have not crossed any internationally recognized state borders. Mr. Speaker, just to give an idea of the severity of the internationally displaced persons globally, in Yemen there are 2.5 million internally displaced persons, I beg your pardon. In Myanmar, 644,000 IDPs. Nigeria, 2.2 million IDPs. South Sudan, 1.6 IDPs. Afghanistan, 1.2 million IDPs, Somalia, 1.2 IDPs, and Syria and Iraq have 7 to 8 million IDPs, which represents about 20% of the refugees globally. Mr. Speaker, majority of those affected the most when there's a conflict or any disaster tend to be the women and children. And unfortunately, a lot of the data does not really break down the extent of the suffering that the women and children go through. And a lot of these are exposures that happen, which are underlying problems during peacetime, which only become aggravated in times of conflict or disaster. And this ties in nicely to the issue of our national security and the concept of see something and say something. And Mr. Speaker, perhaps it would be a good opportunity for the National Security Minister to present a full statement to the House, because we need to know what the chain of command is and who are you to say something to when you see it. And Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, the cost of having to deal with a terrorist attack within a country is so high that we cannot afford to go down that path. And as we can see in some of the other countries where terrorist attacks and violent extremism is spreading, it's quite clear that that break between central government and the rest of the country is one of the things where there's a gap in the provision of services between the government and the people, and others coming in providing those services tend to be seen as the saviors of those communities. Mr. Speaker, the danger in allowing terrorism to make itself manifest in a country is that it becomes a profitable business and it becomes difficult to weed it out. And therefore, we have a lot at stake, and it's in our best interest to ensure that we do not allow any of such activities to become rooted in our country, lest it becomes so profitable that our quest to actually put an end to it becomes futile. And this does not need anything than for us to just cast our eyes in the sub-region to see the difficulty with which certain terrorist groups are being brought under control, because now it's become more profitable for them to exist. There are groups that profit by conflict, who profit when there's chaos, and who profit when there's war. And we must ensure that we have enough education within our country to make sure that our citizens understand the value of ensuring that their safety and national security are preserved and that they have a role to play. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Yes, let me give opportunity to our West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement. I wish I could do it for the first one that talked about refugees, but my heart is touched when my colleague from Tema Central made a very good statement about terrorism. See something, say something. And I would therefore want to make a contribution towards that. Am I to be guided, please? Thank you.
Go on.
Thank you. The fight against terrorism in the world is gradually gaining traction and is gaining complexity, and the attention of nations towards acts of terror is eating so much into national budgets. Unfortunately for us in Ghana, when you look at the strategic blueprint of the national security, it is clearly stated in there that youth unemployment remains a huge security threat to this nation. And recruitment of young people who are doing nothing virtually by terrorist group is a highway towards national destruction. So when the issue of see something, say something was launched, all of us within the security circles and the political circles got so excited, because in a democracy where it is all about sharing your own opinion, and the local parlance, as you put it, kabi mamin kabi, express your opinion and let me express mine. It is an environment that people can say what they want to say. So saying something is part of our democratic tenets. Saying it to who is what we need to define. What am I supposed to say is what we need to get clarity on. But I think that the many prank calls that were experienced immediately after the launch of this very important project tells us as a country that we need to get serious, try as much as we can to enhance the security consciousness of the populace, to understand that where the state is weak, all of us must come together as a people to strengthen the path that will give us the best of security. A weak state is an avenue for terrorists to strike. But all of us as a people will have to understand that when you find something and you don't say it, insecurity anywhere in this country, in any village, will amount to insecurity everywhere. So whether it happens in your village and you decide to keep quiet, when it becomes a national issue, you might be affected in a way that will surprise you. Mr. Speaker, see something, say something is a project by national security that intends to push us to a level that all of us will appreciate that it is not about keeping quiet, it's not about sitting on the fence, it's about expressing your opinion, seeing something that can affect the security of this country and saying it right, and saying it timely. The timely submission of a message within security circles can allow for simple analysis to ensure that the state can react appropriately and timely. Mr. Speaker, see something, say something is a passionate and a very passionate strategy that will enhance national security. But we ought to take note of this. Using hard power to fight terrorism is gradually becoming something that is not working. We ought to enforce the power that we require to fight terrorism to be a soft power. The application of soft power, in other words, empowering the state in a soft angle, every village, every town, every community will appreciate the fact that the power that we have actually resides in us. It is every individual, every citizen's responsibility to say something when you see something, to support national security, to keep this nation peaceful. Because all of us, as we sit here, we are potential refugees. Potential refugees because if terrorists attack this country and we can't stay here, we might be forced to run across country. If you don't run across the country, you become an internally displaced person. So all of us are potential refugees. And all of us, because we want to prevent it, we should be able to say something when we see something. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this very important statement. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm the Member of Parliament for Ketu South, which shares a border with Togo. This morning, I had the opportunity to speak about the movement of, or part of the activities at the border in Aflao to Akanu. Mr. Speaker, coming in here and listening to both statements, one by my brother, Ache Roxanne, Dafamapo, and Eves sent my mind thinking, at what point is the Minister for Interior going to involve us who are in charge, so to speak, in the border communities? Mr. Speaker, if you see the evidence that is in this country, it says that in Cote d'Ivoire, we have 9,000 Ivorians as refugees. It goes on to say we have 3,500 Togolese as refugees. In most of our communities, when we see foreigners, we like to call the ones who we think are poor and are walking barefoot and look a certain way, we call all of them refugees. And yet, we have not been approached as members of communities where people use our communities as entry points into the country. When we see something, who should we talk to? As my colleague just said, when do we say it? Is anybody preparing some guidelines for us to share in our communities of the kinds of things to look out for, which should draw our attention to saying something to the appropriate authority? In the statement read by Eves, perhaps he did, but I don't recall, that he mentioned where and to whom the messages should be given to. Who should we say it to in our various communities? It is important that the message is clear, the guidelines are clear, and we as stakeholders will embrace it and assist the state, because really, as he just said, we are all potential refugees of a sort. Mr. Speaker, the linkages for me are very clear. If someone is here as a refugee, it means something may have happened in their own communities. We are trying to protect ours from being a recipient of those kinds of terrorism or those kinds of activities that lead people to become refugees. But I don't think that I'm empowered enough by the Ministry of Interior to be able to be the voice in my community so that we can address this. I say this especially also because the Minister of Interior on many occasions have told me the reasons why we have many checkpoints and barriers in my constituency and from my constituency into Accra is because of the fear of terrorism. But it is only said in passing, and I don't believe that any concrete steps are being taken to help us assist the nation to protect all of us from being potential refugees. Mr. Speaker, I hope this will be taken into consideration and this House and its members will be approached properly so we can assist. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Can I come to leadership?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, Mr. Speaker, I will just pass on to Honorable Black.
You are yielding it to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me commend my Chief Whip for his magnanimity. Mr. Speaker, the two statements made by the Honorable Dafiambepo and the Honorable Hansen are very important statements, and I must commend them highly for the very well-researched statements. Mr. Speaker, the first statement on World Refugee Day is a timely one. There is a current global refugee crisis.
Honorable, hold on. I think the time is 2:05, so please indulge me to extend sitting beyond the normal hours.
So, Mr. Speaker, as the Honorable Dafiambepo shared with us, there are millions of our compatriots across the world who have been displaced by no fault of theirs, largely due to conflict, poverty, human trafficking, and all kinds of severe conditions that have come upon them. And they are very vulnerable. They are fleeing all of these challenges to a safe haven. Mr. Speaker, as the Honorable Dafiamako observed, as a country, we have occupied a pride of place in how we have welcomed refugees. We have been celebrated internationally for hosting, for the longest period, refugees, particularly from neighboring countries, Liberia in particular. In recent years, Ivory Coast, when Ivory Coast saw that conflict after the election dispute. And so we really, as a country, have excelled. And that is why on this day, it is important to remind everybody that we are common humanity and we must always look out for each other. As you say that, Mr. Speaker, we must point out to some disturbing developments at the refugee front. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, saw many people fleeing that country. Mr. Speaker, what the world has observed is that even with managing refugee crisis, there is discrimination. We see how Western nations open their doors happily, warmly to Ukrainian, Caucasian refugees, but shut the door at Africans. And there have been numerous cases of how African refugees, largely students, who are also fleeing the conflict in Ukraine, even at the border point, you had Ukrainian border officials discriminating. The African Union had to issue a statement, the United Nations had to issue a statement. And we have all seen harrowing accounts of how African refugees were discriminated against. We cannot have a situation in this world where some refugees are better than others, some refugees are preferred than others. They are all vulnerable, regardless of the color of their skin, and they must be treated equally. So on this day, Mr. Speaker, I condemn all of those actions that go to discriminate against refugees of any kind just because of the color of their skin, their background, or their status. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, there is also a raging issue, which is a new policy the United Kingdom is pursuing on the refugee front, where they are seeking to just bundle refugees and then hand them over to Rwanda. Mr. Speaker, activists all over the world have spoken out against that policy. The United Nations has declared the policy inhuman and against international law. The UNHCR is clear about it. And yet, the UK government is hell-bent. And Mr. Speaker, the irony is that a number of countries were approached. I must commend the Ghanaian government for declining to be part of this offer. I must commend the Nigerian government for declining. Surprisingly, the Rwandan government agreed. We are hearing it is about a £150 million package. But clearly, Rwanda has been doing a lot of good things. They've got a lot of development policies right. We may critique their human rights record, but this particular policy, aligning with the Boris Johnson administration to, allow refugees to be just bundled, their rights violated, and to host them and claim that they will be processing them for asylum in Rwanda is most unfortunate. And particularly this week, as the Commonwealth heads of states are meeting in Kigali, I hope that Rwanda will change its mind. Fortunately, activists took the government, the UK government, to court, and there is an appeal court decision. They lost at the High Court, but the appeal court is looking at their review, and we are expecting a decision in July. I hope that the activists will succeed, and I hope that the Rwandan government will really change its mind, because the international community is really disappointed in the Kagame administration for accepting this deal, going into this deal with the Boris Johnson administration. We must all recognize that people don't flee safe havens. If they were comfortable where they are, if they are not under attack, if they are not suffering, from the harsh conditions, they will not be fleeing their home. And so we need to offer empathy, and we need to extend, some love and some care to refugees. And I hope that on World Refugee Day, the world leaders will reflect on some of these inhumane policies against refugees, against people who are fleeing, conflict, fleeing poverty, deprivation, and all kinds of turbulence, will be accorded much more respect. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend my brother Yves Hans Notte for his statement on see something, say something. We are expecting the National Security Minister to come and brief us fully, but we see that there's a lot of public campaign, public education, and it's very much in order. So far, it appears that we are the only country in the sub-region that has not been attacked, so we all must come together. What we see in other countries, Mr. Speaker, is that the political class in particular, they only come together after an attack, and they wish that they were more united and they had all collaborated before the attacks. So let's learn that lesson and let us come together as one people, as a political elite that has responsibility to offer leadership and to help protect our people. So I commend the various initiatives. The only concern so far is that the helpline doesn't seem to be working when people call in. They are not as responsive as they should. I hope that the National Security Secretariat will work on that particular concern, and all of us will put our shoulders to the wheel and be alert. The public education should be taken seriously. Many people don't know how to take personal security, don't know how to, really keep an eye out and be on the lookout for suspicious activity. So I hope, Mr. Speaker, that we'll all refresh, our alertness and be more educated on how to prevent, this dastardly acts that take place. We all must protect our country, and we must be proud that as a country we have never suffered any terrorist attack. We must keep that reputation and do all in our power as political leaders to keep our people safe. I commend the makers of the statements, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you very much for your kind indulgence.
I hope leader is yielding his position to you.
Leader, when I'm here, he always recognizes that I'm around. So I miss you a lot, seriously. I miss you guys. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak for the first time since we started this session. I haven't seen you yourself for a long while. Mr. Speaker, two important statements have been made by our colleagues. I think they both worth contributing to. Let me take the matter of refugees first, and then I'll come to national security. It is World Refugee Day. So I think the prayer is that respective governments should be careful the way they look after and the way they treat refugees. For many, many, many years, what I practiced at the bar of England and Wales, I did quite a lot of work with respect to these refugees, particularly those who had come from areas of persecution, so-called persecution, sometimes so-called persecution. And so, Mr. Speaker, a matter of refugee issues, Speaker, are not alien to me. The whole concept seems to be getting slightly confused now. The 1951 Convention and the Protocol, Mr. Speaker, are very clear on who a refugee is. The legal system developed the concept to include many variants. It's not so much the case that because you feared persecution or prosecution, you just jumped onto the available vehicle and then you found yourself into some advanced countries. There has been a conflation between persecution, so speaking, and prosecution. A lot of people are complaining about prosecution as being equivalent of persecution. What is even worse, as we say it, is economic migration, which is now masquerading under the pseudonym, of persecution. And for that matter, being in need of international protection. 3 days or so ago, I read something on the net, I think Ghana Web or something. It's supposed to be this guy in Germany who I think is a Ghanaian, who they said, and I'm quoting from what I read, had renounced his citizenship of Ghana to be a German. I mean, he seemed to be suggesting that we can all go to Germany and apply for refugee status because there is a hardship in this country. And even the Speaker, it was so bad, the statement was to the effect that even if your area is affected by rain, Mr. Speaker, you could go and apply for refugee status in Germany. It was there on the net and inviting Ghanaians so to do. That is not the basis under which one applies for persecution. I can understand the need for everybody, Mr. Speaker, to seek the economic welfare and then the well-being. Of course, yes, we all want to be comfortable. But if there's a reason why we go to the advanced country, we must find the appropriate and the legitimate means of going to the place. I don't think we should just go and tell all the kind of lies, and there have been so many of them. I recall in those days when Ghanaians would come to my office, and Mr. Speaker, I would ask them about why they applied for refugee status in the United Kingdom, and they talk to me like, I'm not a Ghanaian, When you're telling me the conditions in Ghana, you want to apply for whatever. Mr. Speaker, it gets more complicated. Look at what is happening with the people who are now crossing from France to England, between Calais and across the Channel. Mr. Speaker, can you think about it? I mean, the British government is bereft of ideas what to do. I mean, the recent one, indeed, we did hear, it was rumored, eventually it was denied, that they were seeking to make Ghana a safe haven and to repatriate those people to Ghana. That was the original story that we had. It was eventually denied. But in the end, the law centered on Rwanda. So the British government has now decided that whoever takes the adult journey of crossing the Channel and reaching the United Kingdom through that way, will be returned to Rwanda to apply for refugee status in that country. It was so dead serious that I think 3-4 days ago, a flight was actually taken. But of course, it was about to take off. But at the last minute, indeed, the lawyers had challenged it in the High Court. They had failed. They had made unsuccessful attempts in the Court of Appeal. They had failed. The Supreme Court of England had given the go-ahead for the flight to take them to Rwanda. Very 11th hour, 59th minute, the European Court of Human Rights
granted an injunction, grounded the flight, it didn't take off. These are the things. Much as we sympathize with people who want to seek economic welfare, look at the distinction between economic migration and real political refugee people in need of protection. Look at must be clearly dichotomized. Other than that, international refugee legal protection loses the essence of it. Everybody is crumbling under the pseudonym of protection. There are people who do not need protection. They simply do not need protection. They should stay in their respective countries. I mean, look at Ghana, for example. If everybody else were to come to Ghana because it's peaceful and whatever, claiming to be disabled, can we contain them? And there's also another aspect of it. When Ukraine fell, because of all the crisis, it hasn't completely fallen, but the crisis going on there, we had assumed that our students would come back home. What we heard was that some of them have said that, well, since we're already in Europe, we will do all sorts of things and apply for other status. Home is home, home is home. People should be very careful. We don't have time to debate the whole issue of refugee protection. It would take us hours. The other bit about it is in the statement. It's about the security situation in our environment. That's our sub-region, and particularly lately in Ghana. It's a matter of very grave concern. It's a very grave concern of what's going on. I always suggest that we should pipe it down. When it comes to matters of this nature, I prefer that it is kept cool. It is kept on the quiet. There have been many discussions. There have been many variations of various permutations. I'm concerned that really is giving oxygen to whoever is planning to do us harm. Is it a case that we are actually telling them, giving them advice on what to do and what not to do? The national security, Mr. Speaker, I presume, is on top of what is going on. You listen to radio and debate, and, Mr. Speaker, also the pseudo, what do you call it, experts. You hear their names, they are experts in whatever that they are not doing the country any good. Speaker, we should calm down. Yes, it is. Sorry, you keep saying something, I can't hear you. In conclusion, now what bravo here? Mr. Speaker, let's pretend that you didn't hear that one. So, Mr. Speaker, he wants me to conclude. I think he is tired. Those young ones, I'll be talking to them. He is one of them. I won't mention. He's not looking at me, but he's one of them. Him. One. Two. Quite a few of them that we need to chat about how you guys have been going about things. So we'll be talking. The Speaker, yes, I won't mention the other, but they see me so they know who I'm talking about. We'll be talking about this. But Mr. Speaker, it's also important that this whole business about cool, Mr. Speaker, is kept to their respective staffs. Today, we'll talk about security, and we'll talk about terrorists in the other areas, the other regions. But the worst form of it is the cool thing that we've been talking about every blessed day. I mean, what is the worst form of subverting the national security of a country? And then what the people have been preaching, what people have been talking about. And the last one was people who wanted to go on demonstration. They were seeking for permission to go with arms to go on demonstration. I read yesterday one of our colleagues, the young ones, suggesting that he sympathizes with the Volvo war bloke, but he shouldn't be talking about the foolishness of coup and those things. Well, don't sympathize with the Volvo man for what he's doing. There's nothing good about him. It's creating disunity, it's creating chaos. It's not helping the system. I mean, there was another statement, again, I'm quoting. If it is wrong, I read it from Ghana Web, that the coup has started already. How does it manifest itself? We should be careful. This is the only country we have
we should be mindful the way we go about discussing these matters. I keep saying those who are old enough and have seen the June 4th revolution, Mr. Speaker, wouldn't forever be thinking about coup. But even the 31st December revolution too. Speaker, this is the best system we ever can have. 4 years, if the government is no good, the nation is sitting down there, the people are there, they will do what they have to do. They will go to the polls, Mr. Speaker, change the government. But we shouldn't wish the country worse by imposing this sort of atrocities on the country. Mr. Speaker, looking at me, they are tired. I will spare you. You are enjoying it, aren't you? Any conclusion? Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Well, honourable members, we've brought statement time to a close. We thank the makers of the statements and all the contributors. Leadership, may I come to you?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. It's past 2 and we are in your hands for adjournment.
Speaker, we are not opposed.
Honourable members, the time is already past 2, and therefore I will move on to adjourn the House to tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. I thank you very much. The House stands adjourned.